Thinking of investing, working, or starting a business in the cannabis industry? We've got you covered right here on Plant Problems. Hosted by Tony Frischknecht, Plant Problems takes a different approach to cannabis than what you're seeing and hearing from the mainstream media. Come along with Tony and be in the know about how to invest, work, or start a cannabis business. Let's get the show started with your host, Tony Frischknecht.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Plant Problems. Thank you so much for joining me today. I have a very special guest coming up with us today. She is a writer and sober coach with a website, Tired of Thinking About Drinking. She has written a book about how to quit drinking and has worked one-on-one as a sober coach with 3,103 individual sober pen pals. She hasn't had a drink for 7.5 years and started her own sober journey with a sober trial, a period of time off alcohol to see how she liked it. Apparently she did. Everyone, I would like to introduce Belle Robertson to Plant Problems. Belle, thanks so much for being on my show today. I really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
That's great. I was reading a little bit on your website. You're actually a Canadian living in Paris. How did you get over to Paris?
I married a man from French Canada, and we speak French at home. And we wanted a break from French Canada because it's cold in the winter. And Paris is a place where you can speak French and the weather's better.
That is very true. I just had my first visit over to Paris last year, and what a beautiful place just to walk and walk and walk and walk and walk.
For sure. Originally, we came for 1 year, like a trial. I like to do lots of things as a trial because I don't like, regret, and I don't like to commit to stuff that I don't understand. So sort of like the other stuff that we're going to talk about today, just like moving to Paris, we came for a year. I put that in quotes. And it's been 10.5 years.
But just all of a sudden happened. That's great.
Yeah. Well, you go for a bit and then you decide that you like it more than you thought. Like in the beginning, we left our apartment back home and we left our car in storage. And then after the year, we went back to Canada and sold all our stuff and sold our car. But I couldn't do that right off the bat. I needed the runway.
Yeah, that little safetiness just to know you're able to return if you don't like where you're at, I'm sure, which makes it much simpler to commit after you've been there for a year, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But in lots of things, certainly to do with life and with business, it's hard to commit in the beginning. So if we frame it as a trial, it's a little easier to then go back to the status quo if you don't like the new thing.
Yeah, I agree. I know with business, especially the not fully leaving where your comfortability is at makes sense. The reason why I brought you on is, there's so many. I speak with a lot of entrepreneurs as well as on my podcast, and it is hard for us to make decisions as business people sometimes and not change our mind every other day. And with that comes a lot of different stresses, and how you deal with stress is a whole nother side of the mental game of being an entrepreneur, right?
For sure. And I think also we're afraid of making decisions because we're afraid of regret. And we're afraid of missing an opportunity. And so we want to do everything, can't do everything, but also don't want to burn bridges while we're trying out something. I mean, that's the thing about being an entrepreneur is that you try 7 things and 2.5 of them work. So if you throw everything into one and then wait, you waste a lot of time. So it's easier to throw some energy into a couple things at once to see what's going to float and then prune and make decisions as you go.
Yeah, the cannabis game is a lot of throwing into a lot of different pots for many of us. I spent several years going through that, and I've talked to a couple individuals in particular on my podcast, and they talk about the mental state of what our entrepreneurs are going to be in the next 10 years and worrying about where they're physically going to be after their mental state kind of breaks down. The high regulation of cannabis changes the whole dynamics of stress. And trying to figure it out. The problem right now is that it's so new that everybody's trying to figure this out. And a lot of people are dealing with stress with alcohol, cannabis, and several other substances. And, you brought up a minute ago about being able to understand those, only putting a little bit in and a little bit in here and a little bit in there. And, when you decided you wanted to stop drinking for a while, what situation did you come to where you're like, you know what, I need to just make a change for a while and see what's going to happen?
Well, there was a trial. There was something called Dry July, which is a fundraiser in Australia. Now, this is a while ago. And so since then, there's things like Stoptober and Dry January. But at the time, there was Dry July. And I thought I was drinking more than I wanted to, and it wasn't trending in the right direction. And I knew it was affecting my sleep. And I work as a caterer and had to get up early in the morning, oftentimes, to make bread and stuff. And I just thought, I'm going to have to quit for a bit to deal with this big work project, which I did. And then after that, I thought, I should just quit for a month. That should be easy. And on my own, quitting for a month, I got about 9 days and then thought, wow, this is actually harder than I thought. And so then that was like in March of that year. And then it rolls around to July and there's this Dry July thing. And I think, okay, that's it. I'm going to quit for a month and I'm going to quit for Dry July. July 1st, it's Canada Day. It's a good day to start. It's like July 4th for the US. It's our national day. It's our fireworks days, July 1st. I thought, okay, that's it. I'll start then. But I could only commit because it was a trial, because it was only for a month. And then at the end of a month, then I would give up the new habit and go back to who I was before if I didn't like the new habit. Now, when I started, there was no way I was quitting long-term. There was a 0% chance I was quitting long-term. In fact, there was high probability I wasn't going to make it through 30 days because I had no track record of being able to 100% have none, no sips, no slips, none for my max was 9 days before I started.
Once you achieve that month period, your next step was, well, let's see if I can hang on to this a little longer. Did you set yourself a deadline or another date at that point?
Yeah, exactly. I got close to the end of the month, had to then decide what I was doing. Decided that there was enough positive aspects that I could go a little bit longer, quote unquote. And I knew that I wanted to go long enough to experience what everybody said was coming, which was the voice in your head that asks to drink will stop. If you extinguish the habit and you don't feed it, it'll stop asking. And I didn't believe that. I thought basically they were lying to me. Well, I didn't think they were lying. I thought they were exaggerating in a bunch of Pollyanna. I didn't think it actually got better. So then I thought, okay, well, I'll go 90 days then. Because 90 days seemed to be the good number that people were tossing around where the voice stops asking. The voice in your head that says, how about now? What about now? It's a good day. We should have a drink. It's a bad day. We should have a drink. There's a wedding. We should have a drink. There's a funeral. There's a snowstorm. There's good weather. There's bad weather. It's not just I drink for celebration. It's I drink for disappointment. And I had no faith in my ability to have none forever. I certainly was not quitting forever. That's for sure. I'm still not. I still don't say forever. I say for now. I have a new goal. I've had other goals along the way, but my initial goal from 30 was to go to 90.
In that 90 days, what did you see? How did you see your life change?
Oh, it was large. I mean, it was as large a transformation as any good self-evolution-y, self-helpy evolution thing. Like if you go from being a couch potato to running a marathon, what's the transition? I mean, it's large. It's developing positive routines and having some kind of reward system set up so that you reward yourself for doing the hard thing even when you don't want to and don't feel like it. And then you wake up every day feeling proud of yourself because you're doing the thing that lots of other people don't or can't do. So, it's not dissimilar, except that when you're consuming alcohol, it creates other problems. So it's not just the self-help goals of, feeling proud of yourself, although that's large. When you remove something like alcohol, which is an addictive substance, we know that, and it's a depressant, which we don't all know, or we don't talk about it much, and it makes anxiety worse, which we definitely do not know. That once you remove it, you sleep better, you're not as depressed, and you're not as anxious. And so there's no way I would have known when I was quitting. Because when I was quitting for the self-help reasons. to have a challenge, to prove that I could, to feel proud of myself. The other stuff that happened was completely accidental to me, although to anyone else who has an over-drinking issue who's quit, they already knew this. I didn't know it. Sleep better. Didn't seem like that would, you sort of think maybe you'll sleep better, but how much better you can't really quantify. Feel proud of yourself? Fine. Feel less anxious? There's just no way. It's not printed on the bottle. It does not say you're consuming this hoping it helps you with anxiety and to unwind at the end of the day. What it's doing, in fact, is creating a psychological dependence that then you're anxious when you can't get it. So it actually makes your anxiety worse. And there was no way I would have known that. And I didn't find it out until I was blogging and in this sober world and reading other people's stuff and having people comment on mine. Did I even know there were any patterns? I thought it was just me. Like I thought I was weak or dumb or unevolved or deficient, broken,
Yeah, the anxiety part is it's hard to explain that to people. And I wonder why nobody talks about that much. I know you do as well, but you do all the time, but why is that not shared more openly? It doesn't seem like there's a lot of information about that out there.
Well, there's not a lot of information about high bottom drinkers. And if you're new to this terminology, a person with a low bottom is a person that you might stereotypically call an alcoholic, which would mean someone who has consequences from their overdrinking. And usually we can all sort of think of an example. It's the person sleeping on the park bench. It's a drink driving arrest, someone who's been fired from work. It's someone who's lost their kids, or, there's some tragic, difficult, not unovercomable, but really quite low consequences from drinking too much. And so for people who have a higher bottom, because if alcohol is an elevator that only goes down, you get to choose which floor you step off on. Most people don't get the message until the floor is further down, because we all are saying versions of, it's fine, I'm fine, and I'm not as bad as those people. My friends drink more than me. Therefore, I can't be that far down on the elevator because she sitting beside me drinks more than me, and so on. So when you step off the elevator on a higher floor, thankfully, it's still hard. But then people are not walking around talking about it. If you think about television and to answer your question about why don't people talk about it, if you think about television where somebody relapses or there's an alcoholic on TV, they're going to have a car accident. They're going to have a relapse, first of all. There's no one who's sober and lives happily ever after. So they're going to have a relapse that's going to come out of nowhere, which of course is not how it happens. They're going to have a car accident, and then they're going to go to AA. That's what's going to happen on the average soap opera kind of show. No one on television says, I think I'm drinking more than I want to. I wonder what'll happen if I try to quit. Oh, look, it's harder to quit than I thought it was. Oh, look, I feel so much better. Nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about this gray area drinking or high bottom drinking or whatever you want to call it. Over drinking, I call it. Nobody talks about it at all. So if you go to your doctor and you say, I think I'm drinking too much, they'll do something dumb like count up the number of units per week and tell you that to drink less, which is dumb. And then it's like going in and saying, I'm using too much cocaine. What should I do? And they're like, have a little less. Why don't you just have less? It's like, really? Why don't you have none? If you go to the doctor, they often don't have a category for you because it's inpatient rehab, outpatient treatment, AA. So this whole idea of online support and being able, therefore, to cater something to a higher bottom group is new. Like the internet is new. It's 15 years. When I started this 7.5 years ago, there was like 15 of us blogging. Maybe another 15 who were blogging off and on, relapsing, restarting. But there was a very small group of people doing this. This is pre-Facebook groups. This is before. Yeah,
there seems to be a growing trend of sobriety happening, which is very, very different than it used to be. I notice that even when the restaurants, you're actually starting to see cocktail mixes that are just non-alcoholic. So you can actually have something else to drink besides water or iced tea when you go out. Well, I saw a lot of that in LA. I'm starting to see it out here in Colorado and different restaurants here. So we're starting to see this trend starting to continue further and further right now. And back 7.5 years ago, nobody was doing that.
Really nobody. And if you had a voice in your head that said, drink now, and you didn't think you were an alcoholic, there was nothing available. Like there's no supports for you. Even now, right now, there's lots of online sports. Most people don't know they exist. So, in doing a podcast like yours or having a conversation like this, it just encourages people maybe to go to the internet and type in how to quit drinking instead of what I was doing, which is, am I an alcoholic? Because I could do those tests and come out no. Oh, well, by lying.
Well, and you're also internally dealing with that fight all the time, right? You're saying, well, am I an alcoholic? Am I drinking too much?
Right.
That anxiety coming from that makes it, it makes it hard to start.
Right. Right. And then also in the world, we think we must quit everything forever. And if I have to quit drinking forever, then A, that tells people I have a problem. And B, my head just revolts at that and says, I can't do it forever. Like if I said to you, you can never eat cheese again, you'd be like, what? Grilled cheese? And what about Italy? And the same thing with, you can never drink again. Well, what about when I go to Venice or France or whatever? But if you say do it for 30 days, or on my site, what I eventually started calling it was the 100-day sober challenge. What if you did it for 100 days and then reassessed? Don't talk about forever. Because there's no way to quit something forever anyway. All you do is quit for now and then extend it. And my personal plan now is to drink in 20 years when I retire. And my head is okay with that as an answer. I mean, it seems sort of dumb. Our heads are not that smart, frankly. Our reward motivation system is not that smart and can be misled quite easily by saying, I will drink again. I will drink again later, not now.
So in a way, you're kind of tricking yourself. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, and very consciously. And of course, when I explain this to people, they don't think it works. But if you think about, cognitive behavior training, you reward the good behavior and you delay, stall, or ignore the other behavior. So if you have a 3-year-old who's having a temper tantrum in the grocery store because they want a donut, which is the same thing as your head saying, drink, 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 drink now. My boss is an anus. Sheila and accounting's been up my nose. I have to drink to deal with this. It's the same thing as a 3-year-old screaming donut. It's okay. You've got a 3-year-old on the floor in the grocery store screaming. What do? You give that kid a donut. God help you. Because the next time you go back at the grocery store, it'll be there again. But if you distract, replace, don't go in the grocery store at 5:00, leave them home for the next 3 trips and then try it again. I mean, it's the same thing. Reward the good behavior. Distract or ignore the other behavior.
How have you changed your reward and like, how do you reward yourself when you say the 100-day challenge? Like, what's a reward after 100 days for you? Or what have you suggested to people to do because I know it's when you're in that point of 100 days, gosh, I just want to make 100 days. But how do you make something big enough to where you really want to succeed to get that 100 days?
You have to have rewards along the way. You have to have a reward every 2 days for the first 14 days because it's hard, or every day. It's sort of like saying to a child in grade 5, I'll give you a bike in June if you don't fail the grade. I mean, that's just non-meaningful. Rewards have to be tied to the event and almost at the same time. It's like dog training, right? You can't give the dog a treat 3 days later. It's got no idea what's going on. What's that treat for? And I'm not saying we're not dogs, but you understand what I mean about the event and then the reward. It's the same thing with the 3-year-old in the grocery store. You wouldn't then get a sticker on the calendar 6 days later. The 3-year-old will have no idea what that meant. But if you get through the grocery store and you go home, put a sticker on right away, then it's a reward, right? So rewards can be takeout coffee can be a reward, a sandwich, flowers, bubble bath, download a movie, some kind of special replacement drink. It doesn't really actually matter what it is. For me, I used raspberries and pineapple just because. And I would buy myself the pineapple. And then I would say to myself, this is my reward for being sober because this is hard. And I'm doing it. But that's it. Then I'd eat the pineapple. And then 2 days later, I'd get something else. Again, this is pretty typical textbook cognitive behavior modification. Most people don't use it to do with mental health things. They use it to change behaviors like habits like nail biting or dogs or children. They don't think about using it in terms of changing their own behavior, particularly to do with mental health things.
Yeah, it's one of the toughest things with alcohol is it just becomes a habit and you didn't even know that that's what it is. And then you're so deep into it, then it's scary to get away planning out that 100 days. And it's like, well, I don't want to quit forever. Like you said, nobody wants to quit anything forever.
No, and lots of times people don't want to quit for 100 days either, in which case we do the rewards every 2 days. But I mean, if you do it with accountability, where you have to email your sober pen pal every day and say how you're doing and what day you're on and what your treat was, and we're checking on you, and I say happy hooray on day 21, and There's some cheerleading as well. Like you and I know that we can set all kinds of goals, and then tomorrow we press snooze and sleep right through it.
Absolutely.
But if you've got somebody at the gym waiting for you, you're more likely to go. And if you have some kind of sober accountability, and it really could be set up in any way. I mean, I've got stuff on my site, but it could easily be, a sponsor at AA or another sober person or some kind of online system that works for you. We're way more likely to do anything in life. This is business stuff too, right? How much better do we do with a mentor where we ask somebody who's already done it how they were successful and then try some of those things, including the stuff that doesn't make any sense. But we don't have any context. We're not successful yet. So everything is going to seem dumb or weird. Whereas the person who's successful has figured some stuff out. So just like in business, you'd find somebody who is successful and then ask them and then do it and then do it. Rather than saying, that won't work for me. Well, did you try it? It's like, I need to borrow money for the bank. Did you write a business plan? Yeah, I want to do it without a business plan. Like, okay, but that's how the bank gives you money. You need a business plan. Yeah, I'm going to try it without. Okay. Come back to me then in 3 weeks when you've tried that, and we'll talk about some other things,
Yeah, the accountability part of this is such a key aspect. And just like you said, in anything, you have to be held accountable to make that change and make that extra step.
But we don't do it with mental health things. We do it when we want to train for a marathon, we buy the book, and then we sign up at a clinic. We don't just buy the book, can't figure it out, don't run the marathon. We sign up for a group. We do some kind of accountability thing. Most people who run their first marathon are in some kind of group. Most people who want to improve their swimming don't read a book and watch a video on YouTube. They get somebody in the water beside them. At least in the beginning. Anybody who wants to learn to drive has somebody sitting in the seat beside them saying, switch lanes, slow down. That's exactly what a sober coach can do. Basically say, switch lanes, slow down. Switch lanes meaning avoid that thing coming up that you can see. And slow down, meaning don't take on too much at once. Make sure you've got enough buffer. Don't get too overwhelmed. Make sure you eat enough. Have your snack. Have your replacement drink. Have your audio. This is what a coach does. It's exactly the same as what a driving instructor would do. Now, do you need a driving instructor forever? No. Eventually, can you do almost all of those things automatically? Like think about you when you were learning to drive. It was 2 hands on the wheel. No radio. No passengers. Only in the daytime. Super safe. Later, you can drive on the highway with 1 hand and eat a hamburger at the same time. But you still have 1 hand on the wheel and you don't abdicate responsibility for the car. You don't fall asleep at the wheel. Sobriety is the same. And large mental health change things like sobriety are the same thing. It takes 2 hands on the wheel in the beginning with somebody saying switch lanes, and then eventually it's 1 hand, and then you can listen to the radio at the same time, and then later you can drive even if there's bad weather, and if something really bad happens, you turn off the radio and put both hands back on the wheel. That's what you and I do every day when we're navigating snow. We know how to drive in the snow. You turn the radio off. You need to concentrate on what's going on. And if you're having a sober life and something happens like your mother dies, you do the equivalent of turning the radio off, which is you cancel out of the volunteer things. You say, I'm sorry, I can't do carpool. And you go back to basics.
It seems as if the accountability, having the pen pal, having somebody to back you up, more success on the end of this, is that how you work with your clients? Is that basically like, say they're going into a situation where they're going to a network event. I have tons of them that I go to. You have to meet people face to face. And I think one of the scariest points when I was, staying sober for a period of time, when I was saying, oh, I've got this month, I've got 2 months, 6 months, is going to these networking events and trying to relearn. That was a scary point for me, is relearning how to be social without using a substance like alcohol and walking around and meeting people. How are you dealing with your clients in those types of situations?
Well, first I should say that 80 to 85% of what I do is free. And so people can sign up on my website, get free daily emails. I do audios. I have live Facebook videos. I do live audio events. I do meetups. I send stuff in the mail, all free. So there's whacks of stuff that people can access. Then if you want personal accountability, which is me one-on-one, like emails or phone calls, then people can pay for that. And the people who pay for that, for example, might email before they go to the event, during the event, and when they get home. So it's like book ending. You email before, during, and after, including just going to the bathroom and texting from the bathroom. I'm here, I'm fine. And then you text again when you get home. I know that sounds dumb, except that when your head thinks that I'm going to pay attention to whether or not you check in, then your head is more likely to be sober. It's not that I am magical. It's that you reaching out changes things. And when you aren't alone in your head with it, it changes things for you. And so that's one, but in that case, in that exact case, somebody would email me and say, I've got this networking thing coming up. They'll either say to me, I'm going, or they'll say, do you think I should go? Depending on which thing they say, my approach is different. I try to meet people where they are. Are they asking if it's a good idea, or are they asking for strategies because they are going? Fine, we'll do it either way. If they're asking for strategies, then we talk about things like arriving late and leaving early, having your own drive so you can leave when you're done, not carpooling, having a plan for what you're going to drink when you're there, including having a plan for what you're going to say if somebody says something directly, like, what, you're not drinking? I mean, or can I get you something? Or even just basically, what's that you got there? What are you drinking? To have standard answers for those things prepared, to have some kind of a treat planned for after, back to the treats, bubble bath, cake, some kind of music, something to look for, clean sheets. I mean, really, knowing that you're going to go home sober and climb into clean bed really is quite motivating.
Yeah, you're right.
Like you go home and you have a shower and you're sober, and then you get into bed and you're sober. It's like, man, I'm a super rock star. I'm like a superhero.
Yeah.
And so then you might,
My
and then you might
morning's going to be great.
Yeah, exactly. Then you wake up in the morning and your morning is great. And then you email me and you say, I'm so glad I didn't drink last night. And then I say to you, nobody wakes up wishing they drank the night before. Nobody wishes they drank last night. Everybody is happy to be sober in the morning. And so, there's some kind of version of rinse and repeat on that. If you're going to the staff Christmas party, it's a version of that, including don't go. But again, it depends on the person. There's a version of that when it's going on a vacation. When it's going on a vacation with your with your parents or your brothers and sisters are all meeting in some house somewhere. There's a version of how to deal when your sister-in-law dies and you're estranged, and so you don't know where the lines are and you don't know how to do it without alcohol. So when I work with somebody for a year, they might be on day 365 at the end of the year, in which case we have worked through one birthday, one Christmas, one Thanksgiving, one death, one travel. Like we work through one of everything. Or at the end of a year, they're on day 10, in which case we've worked through how to get started, how to stay going, what to look for. Okay, add something else. That wasn't enough. Add another tool. Okay, add 2 more tools. Let's add in more accountability. Okay, that wasn't quite enough. What do you think we could add? Let's adjust this. And then at the end of the year, then maybe you're on day 10. I'm not saying that that's a great outcome. I'm just saying that people often say, well, what do I need support for a year for? Because one of those 2 options is going to happen, right? Either you're going to go right straight through and have a bunch of things to deal with, or you're not going to go straight through, which is most people, and you're going to need some encouragement and strategies on how to get up again and keep going. I can say of the last 100 people that signed up to do it with me one-on-one, like I've got tens of thousands of people following the free daily emails. And just a word to your audience. If you'd like to have a large email list, send them stuff that's actually useful, like really useful to them, not to you, in which case you can email your list 2 or 3 times a day, which is what I do. A day.
That's amazing.
Because they've opted in and it's actionably helpful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a story from somebody else or something from me, or it's a tip, or it's a good story, or it's a bad story, because they're both motivational. Do this, don't do that. I mean, those are both helpful. I don't even know where my train of thought was. They sign up for a year. They do pen paling back and forth. There's coaching calls included. There's audios included. Or someone will follow along and do only the free stuff.
Well, and I'd like to point out too, is that for comfortability, for anybody out there that is struggling with alcohol or drugs, that this is a totally anonymous. You can be anonymous, and Belle, you are anonymous as well, correct?
Right, exactly. Well, because I encourage my pen pals to be anonymous, because really, to be fair, AA is anonymous, but you need to put your head in the room. And I have psychiatrists in my group who need one-on-one support to quit drinking. They can't go to AA, or they feel that they can't. I shouldn't say that they can't. There are medical special AA groups for medical professionals. But if you're a psychiatrist, you might sign up with me. For example, if you're a medical doctor, you might sign up with me because there's a fear of sanctions from your licensing board. If you're a pilot, you might sign up with me. If you're a mother of 3 children under the age of 11, all of whom have autism, you might sign up with me because getting childcare to go to a meeting is going to be impossible. And I've worked with all those people. I have a judge in my group. I have 1 anesthesiologist. I have good 24 lawyers and a good 36 doctors, nurses, midwives. Midwifery is pretty stressful. Lots of very stressful baby situations, lots of PTSD stuff, lots of alcohol, lots of abuse of different substances, of course. I have lots of men in my group. I have people with kids without. I have all ages too, like 26, I think, to 76. People often say, what's your demographic? And the answer is anybody who has a voice in their head that thinks that drinking is a good idea. But I remembered what I was going to say, which was of the last 100 people who signed up to work with me one-on-one, which does not count the free people, the last 100 who signed up to do it one-on-one, 72 of them are sober. And I'm not pre-screening. I don't require them to be on a certain date when they start with me. I don't require them to have had any success before. People self-select. If they want the service, it's available. So that's a pretty high number.
Yeah, 72% is amazing.
Right? But what it means is those people are still self-selecting. The people who sign up for it are the people who think that they're likely to be successful. Otherwise, they wouldn't pay for it. But that said, people sign up and then relapse within 24 hours of handing me money. So it's not like a walk in the park, and it's not like paying for support makes it easy either. I mean, the reverse is also true. It's not just like anything magical happens. But when we're not alone in our head, it really changes what we can do. It changes the narrative. It changes the outcome when it's not just us in our head, flailing around unsuccessfully for years.
Yeah, knowing that there's other people out there like you is, it changes things too. It changes things in your mind, and you're like, oh, I can actually be sober and meet other sober people and do sober things. And it's like, there's other people out here. This is amazing.
Well, that's right. And then you realize you're not alone because, like you said it before, why don't people talk about this? Or why isn't anxiety talked about? Or why isn't depression talked about? Not only that, but we don't realize how large the numbers are. Like on this day that this audio is being recorded, I have 30,000 people signed up for the free daily emails. That just seems like a really large number. Seems like a really large number.
Yeah.
In 6 years, I've worked one-on-one, back and forth, emailing directly, one-on-one, 3,103 people. Now, you might, and I'm one girl on the internet you've never heard of.
Until now.
Well, but it's like there's stuff going on in the world that you don't know about, and there's people getting help in ways that you don't know about.
Everything's global now, so it's changed with the internet, right? People like yourself are popping up all over the world. I mean, you're not from Paris, but that's where you live. And, you know, that's what's amazing about the internet is it's connecting people that are doing incredible stuff like you. And if they're having issues on one side of the world, it's very similar to, you know, another side of the world, and they can catch up with you. And I really enjoy that's happening. It's amazing what the internet's doing.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Well, Belle, I want to give you a minute to share how best can people reach out to you and if they want to contact you and talk about anything or listen to your podcast or anything like that.
Well, probably the easiest place to start is the website where you can sign up for the free daily emails, because then most of the stuff is introduced through there. One of the problems that we all suffer from is feeling overwhelmed. So I actually have a squeeze page. I have a page with nothing on it except sign up for stuff, because people go down a rabbit hole and get freaked out. So if you sign up on the main page, you get a daily email. It slowly introduces you to me, gives you some stuff to read, little audio clips, bits and pieces, and then you begin to get the free daily emails that I send to everybody. And that's at tiredofthinkingaboutdrinking.com. So that's the website with the one button that says, you know, sign up for stuff. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, not tons. I have a free podcast and I have a paid podcast. The free one is on Apple Podcasts. If you search for Sober Insights or search for Sober and Belle, Belle, that'll give it to you. I have paid stuff as well. I have a book, which you can find either on my site or on Amazon. It has a very clever title. It's the same name as my blog, which is Tired of Thinking About Drinking. That's probably it. That's the most of it.
Oh, great. Well, I encourage people to go check out our website as well as your book. I want to thank you, Belle, and to my listeners out there. I've struggled with alcohol in the past, and I know how challenging it is. And to have somebody out there to support you along the way is a huge, huge help. And you're not the only one. Thank you so much for being on Plant Problems today. And if you guys are interested in subscribing to my podcast, please go to plantproblem.com. As well, if you have some comments about this interview or any others, I'd be more than happy to dig in deeper on if you have some questions for me. Thanks so much. Belle, I appreciate it. You have a great day. I love Paris, so enjoy your home.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I hope to catch up with you sometime soon. I'd love to do something else with you in the future.
That would be great, for sure.
You've just listened to another insightful episode of Plant Problems. If you like what you heard so far, don't forget to tell your friends and colleagues. For additional resources or to leave a review, head over to plantproblem.com. Join us again next week on Plant Problems with Tony Frischknecht. We look forward to having conversations with you as we go along this journey.